And your question is?
My question is... well, before the question... Shalom, Motzai, Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.
Welcome to our advanced study here at Congregation Mashiach Yisrael. My name is Scott Siskin. Tonight we're studying Tanya after Shabbat. Welcome. My question to all of you is, Mi yiftach otanu b'tefila uvracha. Who would like to open us with a prayer and blessing?
Ani? Ani. This is a proper response.
Or OT maybe? OT.
Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King. Be gracious to us and teach us. Have mercy on us and grant our heart understanding to comprehend and to discern, to perceive and to learn, to teach and to observe, to practice and to fulfill all of the teachings of your Torah with love. Enlighten our eyes in your Torah and cause both our hearts to cleave to your commandments. Unite both our hearts to love and fear your name, that we may serve you in truth, that we may rejoice and exalt in your salvation. For you have chosen us from among all the nations and have in love brought us near to your great name, that we may praise you, proclaim your oneness, and to love your name. Blessed are you, O Lord, who graciously bestows knowledge on man and teach mortals understanding. Graciously bestow upon us your kokma, your bina, your da'at, your wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, especially tonight, out of your Tanya, the secrets of your Torah. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Beautiful.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. So tonight we are going to be studying chapter 10 of Tanya.
You know what the interesting thing is? As much as I was in this book today, I did not look ahead into 10. Of course, this is our second time.
That's right. Baruch Hashem.
Likutei Amorim.
Likutei Amorim. So, before we talk about the significance of the number 10, which I think is important here to begin chapter 10, where did we come from? I've been given introductions for each one of these things. You guys know where we're coming from and where we're going?
Oh. Yeah, we're coming from chapter 9. We're going to chapter 10.
Excellent. High five. Thank you so much for that. Write that down. What did we study in chapter 9, let's say? Let's just go a little far back.
Okay.
What did we study in chapter 9?
You want a little more detail.
No, it helps.
The evil inclination and the good side and the bad side.
That's right. We started a new section, right? Our first section of Tanya was spiritual composition. The Alter Rebbe told us who we are, what the world is, what our place in it is. Mm-hmm. And then chapter 9 starts this new section, the war between the souls. Mm-hmm. You have something on your mind?
Oh, no. Well, I was just looking at exactly what you're saying.
Oh,
I've got
very
notes
good.
here. And I know one of the, I think, glossary notes that I was reading was about the souls, the two souls, the animal soul and the divine soul, and how they're rooted, and which is what we looked at.
What is the root of each of the souls, the animal and the divine?
The animal soul is rooted in the left side of the heart, where the blood is. The divine soul is mainly rooted in the brain, which is within the head, and our intellect.
Very true. What is the substance of the animal soul? What is the substance of the godly soul?
The animal soul is derived from the Klipa Noga.
Klipat Noga, right? God formed us from the dust of the earth. It's good, it's bad, it could be whatever you make it, right?
Right.
What about the godly?
The godly soul is actually breathed into us from the divine. It is this peace of God within us as a spark.
Absolutely true. And of course, God doesn't have a body. He doesn't have lungs. He doesn't have lips, right? This is imagery. It says God breathed the breath of life into our mouth. Why breathe the breath of life? What's the concept of breath? It comes from your kishkas, right? From your innards, from your insides. Right, from your innermost self.
So it's sort of like Anoki, the acronym, which...
What's it? Ananafshi, Katu, something?
Yeah, forget it exactly, but that's it. And I give to you my soul in writing. God gave to us from within himself.
Right in the very first word of the Ten Commandments, Anochi. Very good. So that's where we're coming from. We understand that there's a godly soul, and what does the godly soul want?
The godly soul wants to serve God.
Right, with everything. What is everything?
All of our heart, our soul, our strength, our might.
Our muchness.
All of our muchness, right? All of our garments, right? The godly soul wants control over all of our garments, the thought, the speech, and the deed. What does the animal soul want?
More 7-layer cake.
More 7-layer cake, right?
The animal soul wants me.
Selfish desires, absolutely true. Selfish desires. It wants to make sure that the animal soul wants to make sure the body's fed.
Why he's
and
called
sleeps.
the old fool.
That's why he's called the old fool, right?
Right.
Babies know what it means to be hungry and to want food and to want to sleep and to want whatever it is that they want, right? This is the animal soul being acted out before the godly soul wakes up, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
So the godly soul is a little piece of God itself. It wants Torah, it wants mitzvahs. The animal soul is a klipat noga. Its desires of the world, worldly stuff, food, sex, money, power, a bigger house, a nicer boat. I'm still waiting for my boat.
Right.
And actually, both have a common goal. They want exclusive dominion
They want exclusive dominion over what?
over the small city.
Which is the small city?
This is me.
This is
My
our body,
body.
right? The godly soul and the animal soul are battling. They're two kings waging a war. What are they fighting over? The battleground is ourselves, our body.
Dominion over the inhabitants of the city.
Does each or either of the animal soul or godly soul want harm to come to the body?
No.
No, they both want good.
Right.
It's good that we should want to eat. It's good that we should want to sleep. It's good we should want to reproduce and keep the species going, right?
However, the old fool doesn't realize that some of its wants are harmful.
Can be harmful. How do they become harmful?
Indulgence.
Indulgence,
Indulgence is one.
excess, right?
Mm-hmm.
When it turns from self-preservation to hedonism, we have a problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
The godly soul wants to temper all of that by saying, let's spend our life doing Torah and studying Torah and doing mitzvahs. And in that way, we will accomplish everything that we most fully want to. And the animal soul somewhere inside realizes that as well. It's very hidden and very deep. And that's our job, is to teach the animal soul what it truly wants is best for the body, which is Torah and mitzvahs. It really is the best.
Reminds me of a T-shirt. So when does this old enough to know better thing actually
Kick
kick in?
I don't know, actually. Let's say it's different for everybody, huh?
You see the relationship.
Yeah, exactly. So, tonight we're going to study chapter 10, and I'm just going to, as a brief introduction here, what's the imagery, what's the symbolism, what's the meaning of the number 10 in Torah, in Judaism?
Is it a type of completeness?
Completion, absolutely. 10 is a Dewey Decimal System,
Perfection.
right? Perfection.
And in that sense, too, the order.
Order.
Everything, everything is
Right.
almost everything except for days, except for time, which
Right.
is in sevens, is in tens.
Right. Everything's in tens, right?
Uh-huh.
You can open up our beloved Siddur and look in Pirkei Avot, chapter 5, and it says all kinds of tens. All kinds of tens. The God created the world with 10 utterances. There's 10 commandments, etc., etc., etc. So 10 is this number of perfection, of righteousness, of establishment, of completion, of perfection. We already say that? So
That's an important point that we often
totally miss?
Forget about. The 10 utterances, the foundation of
Right,
creation,
Yehi Rakia.
and the 10 words on the tablets.
Absolutely. It's right there.
10 statements.
It's right there.
Yeah.
And this helps us to understand how the world came to be through the Torah.
And the Tanya tries to describe the essence of God in the form of those 10 emanations or
10 attributes, Sephirot. Absolutely true. 10 is a very important number.
And we try to then relate in our reflection of those emanations 10 attributes within us.
Very true. As it says in Eov and Job, right? I can look at myself and understand a little bit about God. Right? That's from Patach Eliyahu.
There was actually another quote I came across from Job.
In Elijah's prayer, yeah?
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So 10 is the number of perfection. You said something earlier. 10 is Yud. Yud means wisdom, right? So knowing all this, with all of this as a brief introduction, what is chapter 10 about? We just discussed that there's a war between the souls. The animal soul and the godly soul are fighting for control over the body. We discussed earlier in chapter 1, we asked a question. What was our question? The true definition of a tzaddik, of a Beinoni rather. The true definition of a Beinoni. A Beinoni is, it can't be someone who sins half the time and does mitzvahs half the time. Because Rabbi said, for example, the great tzaddik sage Rabbi said, Midrash Rabbi, the Talmud Rabbi, he said, I, for example, am a Beinoni, right? People followed him every moment of the day. He didn't have had time for half sins, half mitzvahs. He was only doing mitzvahs all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So how could he mistakenly think that he was a Beinoni? We're looking for a more perfect definition of Beinoni. So now the Alter Rebbe is going to start answering this question. Again, chapter 10, what's it going to be about?
About tzaddiks, people who
The
have
tzaddik,
perfected it.
The perfection one. The one who has the wisdom, right? The one who has God's divine utterances. The one who has the mitzvah.
Oh,
absolutely.
So chapter 10 is addressed to the
tzaddik. Chapter 10. I mean, the whole book 1 is addressed to the Beinoni. But chapter 10 is about the tzaddik. Similarly, chapter 11, Kabbalah considers the number of wickedness, impurity. Right? We have 11 spices in our incense.
Uh-huh.
11 is the one of impurity?
Well, the idea is 10 is perfection. If you add 1 to that, it became chaos, right? Exactly. Not so good. And there's this one spice in the 11 spices of the incense called galbanum. It's a major part of the spice concoction, and it smells terrible, right? By itself, it smells terrible. When it's mixed in with the whole of the Jewish people, it becomes beautiful, amazing, right? So what is chapter 11 about? The Rasha? The wicked one.
Okay.
Chapter 12, what does 12 represent in Judaism? The 12 tribes. Average Jews. What's chapter 12 about? The Beinoni. So we're going to be on a little 3-chapter progression here. Chapter 10 about the tzaddik, 11 about the Rasha, 12 about the Beinoni. Again, all speaking to the Beinoni about these different topics and levels. And we're going to give a big chart, actually. I thought I had some paper here to write something down, but we'll figure it out later.
Put that chart over here so we can see it.
It would probably be good.
Yeah.
But so maybe we'll do some graphs later if we get to this part.
It's too bad if you shrunk it so that we had it on where we could use it on
It'd be
tables.
so tiny.
You wouldn't be able to read any of the print,
Right.
Except for maybe the headings.
We should
Maybe.
make it the tablecloth.
I was going to say we can make it the tablecloth.
Assuming people didn't suppose. I'm just kidding.
I'm just
It's all good. All right, so we've had a pretty good introduction about chapter 10. Chapter 10 is going to define what is a tzaddik, what is a tzaddik, and how is a tzaddik different from other things. And that conversation is going to become bigger and bigger as we move through this 3-chapter sequence.
There was something I actually also read, and it really described a tzaddik who has gained, if you will, control over the animal soul and its inclination and the sitraka.
That is, in essence, the definition of a tzaddik. A tzaddik is one who's mastered his animal soul. The godly soul won the fight over the small city. It's over, it's done, right? However, when we're talking about Torah and mitzvahs, 613 mitzvahs, and you have kavana involved in that as well, intention and devotion, there could be many, many thousands of levels of a tzaddik, right? So that's what the Alter Rebbe is going to describe here. Who would like to begin reading?
I'll read.
Okie dokie.
Behold, when a person fortifies his divine soul and wages war against his animal soul to such an extent that he expels and eradicates its evil from the left part, as it is written, and you shall root out the evil from within you, yet the evil is not actually converted to goodness, he is called incompletely righteous, or a righteous man who suffers.
So let's go ahead and define those terms a little bit. We have 2 terms here. Let's see. Tzaddik she'eno gomer. This is an incomplete tzaddik or an imperfect tzaddik, right? One who is not 100% tzaddik, right? Let's say there's a 1% tzaddik, a 50% tzaddik. This one is one that's not 100%. That's one way you could identify him. Another term for it here is a tzaddik varalo. Is a tzaddik and there's evil within him a little bit, right? He's still got a little bit of stuff that he didn't master the animal soul. So what do we mean? Again, 613 mitzvahs. Let's say you have a gentleman here and he is become completely meticulous when it comes to the concept of, I don't know, tzitzit. So when it comes to tzitzit, he makes sure that they're kosher, he makes sure that he wears them at the appropriate times and not when he doesn't, and he has no desire at all anymore. His negative soul, his animal soul, has absolutely no effect on the concept of tzitzit for this guy. Okay? For this guy, he has no struggle, no battle whatsoever when it comes to tzitzit. It's automatic. Right? The animal part, the animal soul in relation to that mitzvah has been totally dominated and even converted to true good. Right? It's another, and this is the goal. This is like what Yitzchak's goal was for Esau. Isaac wanted to give Esau the blessings because he saw that he had a very powerful animal soul. He's like, if we can convert this negative animal soul into a good soul, it's going to have a whole bunch more horsepower than Yaakov's soul, than Jacob's soul, right? Mm-hmm. Because Jacob's animal soul is very small because he never feeds it, right? Mm-hmm. Does that kind of make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when we're coming to the incompletely righteous tzaddik, or the righteous, and this is the translation here, is a righteous man who suffers. A righteous still got some evil within him. Okay, he's good on tzitzit. But when it comes to eating kosher, right? He likes a cheeseburger. He likes a ham sandwich, right? So this
just
is
once in a while.
I'm just kidding. That's not true. None of that's true. None of that's true. Whereas we're going to learn in chapter 11, a person who sins even once is no longer called a tzaddik, right? What are they called? Rasha. They call a wicked, a failed person. If you sin one time, you're called a Rasha. So a tzaddik is someone who toes the line all the time. Until he doesn't, God forbid, and then he's not called a tzaddik.
Yeah, until he makes teshuvah.
Okay, a Rasha is a Rasha until he does teshuvah, right? A wicked person's wicked until he repents, and then he's righteous, right? He's clean. As God says, come, let's reason together, right? If you have sins that are red like scarlet, I'll make them white like snow. So we have this functionality of teshuvah. Good time to throw it in. Thank you for that. However, so the tzaddik is not going to be eating cheeseburgers or ham sandwiches, right? The tzaddik is going to, an incomplete tzaddik like this, who is his animal soul is not mastered in the kosher department, he might still want a cheeseburger. He might still want a ham sandwich. Of course, he never does it because he always toes the line because he's a tzaddik, right? If he sinned even one time, he's no longer a tzaddik. He's a Rasha. So these aren't levels of plateaus or prisons that you can get locked into, right? You can't climb up a mountain and be a tzaddik and stay there forever, or climb down into the valley or into a prison cell and be a Rasha and stay there forever. This is fluid, right? It depends on how we are, what we're doing, right? It depends on who we are today. And this is very important. The Alter Rebbe is going to say later, almost at the end of Tanya here, about the concept of the exodus from Egypt, right? We have the ability to come out of our own prison and into our own plateau every single day. But I don't want to jump too far ahead.
That is to say, there still lingers in him a fragment of wickedness in the left part, except that it is subjugated and nullified by the good, because of the former's minuteness.
So what's happening here is the concept of the godly soul is so shiny and so powerful and so overwhelming that the animal soul doesn't get a word in edgewise, right? The godly king is fighting the evil king over the small city, over the body, and the godly king is just so much stronger that the bad king, the animal soul king, is not getting anywhere, right? So it's totally outshined, nullified even, right?
Hence he imagines that he has driven it out and it has quite disappeared. In truth, however, had all the evil in him entirely departed and disappeared, it would have been converted into actual goodness.
Right, and that's the difference, right? As we're going to talk in chapter 12, that's the difference between a Beinoni and a tzaddik. A tzaddik is no longer tempted by evil, right? He has turned it into another godly soul. He turned his animal soul into another godly soul. It's just adding horsepower to his Torah and mitzvahs. Right? It doesn't tempt him anymore at all.
The explanation of the matter is that a completely righteous man...
The term for this in Hebrew is tzaddik gomer. Perfectly tzaddik.
In whom the evil has been converted to goodness, and who is consequently called a righteous man who prospers.
This is a tzaddik v'tov lo.
What is
it's a tzaddik who's only got good in him.
Rabbi not using those terms here in this.
Which terms?
That you
the Hebrew
just
terms.
gave to us.
He is. We're just reading the English translation.
Awkward.
Probably have to see the footnotes, right?
I guess.
Funny.
But yeah, the idea is that you have a tzaddik v'ra-lo. There's a tzaddik and there's still a little evil in him. And there's a tzaddik tovlo, and there's a tzaddik that's only good in him, right? There's no more of these parts where there's maybe a temptation for a ham sandwich.
The evil has been converted to good.
100% entirely. He has no animal soul anymore. He's got two godly souls, and one's more powerful, right?
Has completely divested himself of the filthy garments of evil. That is to say, he utterly despises the pleasantness of this world.
Pleasures,
of this world, finding no enjoyment in human pleasures, of merely gratifying the physical appetites instead of seeking the service of God, inasmuch as they are derived from and originate in the Kalipa and the Sitra Achra. For whatever is of the Sitra Achra is hated by the perfectly righteous man with an absolute hatred, by reason of his great love of God and of his holiness, with profuse affection and delight and superlative devotion, as it is stated above.
So, let's just go ahead and take another quick look at that. So, and this is a fundamental concept of being a tzaddik, right? This reminds me of the story of Reb Hillel Azakin, right? Rabbi Hillel, he said, of blessed memory, he would teach his Torah class all day. At the end of the day, it would be getting dark, it would be getting late, and he would say to his students, I need to run and do an act of tzedakah, an act of kindness, of charity to a poor, impoverished soul. And they say, our master and teacher, let's go help you do a mitzvah,
He was hungry, right?
And he said, I need to feed my body, otherwise I'm going to die, right?
Take me out to eat.
Tzaddik, that's
like
what
that.
you could do. A tzaddik doesn't think about when the next lunch is coming, right? A tzaddik doesn't think about seconds in dessert. A tzaddik is only 100% concerned with godliness, Torah and mitzvahs. And furthermore,
however,
go ahead.
feeding the body, the physical body, can enable him to better do the mitzvah.
That's why Hillel recognized it's time to eat, right? It's time to eat. It's not time to gorge yourself. It's time to eat the required amount.
Right.
So this line I really want to focus on. That is to say, he utterly despises the pleasures of this world, finding no enjoyment in human pleasures or merely gratifying physical appetites, instead seeking the service of Hashem. So, excuse me. The concept here, and this is what I wanted my little chart for. I was going to draw one, but we don't got a piece of paper.
I can get you a piece of paper.
You got a piece of paper and a
Turn
Sharpie
around.
real quick?
I have a piece of paper here.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Just scrap paper is good. So if we have a...
Here's the chip.
Okay. Thank you. If we have a chart here, if you'll just bear with me for a second. All right, here's our chart. We have the...
You want a ruler?
It's fine. It doesn't really matter. The level of the animal soul which was transformed from bad to good, right? The level of tzaddik he is, let's say on the top here, it's 100% tzaddik, right? 100% tzaddik. And on the bottom, it's 0%. On this line, it's going to be love of evil, okay?
On this line or below it?
The x-axis, the bottom one.
Oh.
Okay? So this is the tzaddik chart. Going up, he's more of a complete tzaddik. Love of God, less of a complete tzaddik, lower down. Going this way, more towards the right, is going to be a love of evil. Less towards the right, it's going to be despising evil, right? He hates evil over at 0%. So here's the chart. Here's the line. Let's say that 100% is right here.
Now, evil may be a strong word for there. We do also include physical pleasures, and sometimes they're not bad.
Right. So that's an important distinction.
But what did
Let me
he
just grab
say?
this.
Totally despising.
So hopefully you can see that.
Right.
Right.
But that bends toward asceticism, which is wrong too.
Right, absolutely, which is why Hillel recognized it's time to eat.
So
the Baal Shem Tov
what is asceticism?
was totally against that.
It's the total opposite of hedonism. I do nothing for myself. I starve myself. I do the lashes of myself.
Oh, that's
Instead of indulging in human pleasure, it is actually beating of the body.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
You know?
It's inappropriate, right?
Right.
No peas in the shoes.
Right.
So, if you're 100% tzaddik, you have zero love for evil of you, right? If you have a little bit of love for evil, let's say it's 5%, not a lot of love for evil. You mostly love good, but you love a little bit of evil, you cannot possibly be 100% tzaddik. Loving God and loving good absolutely has to mean
the more
a
you
hatred
come
of evil.
over here, the less of 100% you are.
Right, so if
That's
you
the
love
concept.
evil all the way, you're not a tzaddik at all. Right?
No, this is a different
Right.
term.
Go to Russia, right? So this is kind of the chart that,
But
that
up
we should
here,
kind of focus
it's
on.
total subjugation of the animal soul.
Total subjugation of the animal soul is a really good way to put it.
We should title that on top something. What are you titling? Tzaddik?
I don't know. Whatever you
we
think
know-
is good.
So we have it to add to our lists of fabulous charts that we love so much.
We do love our fabulous charts.
They're useful.
They are useful.
They're
Visual
useful.
effects
Put
help.
tzaddik
So
in
again,
there.
if you're 100% tzaddik, you absolutely loathe evil and you do nothing for yourself, right? That selflessness is 100% gone. And okay, love of evil may not be the way to go. You could also say selfishness.
Or pleasantness of the world.
Physical pleasure, right.
Let's just go with selfishness.
Okay. Right. Because it always comes around to...
Right. So, if you're not thinking about yourself at all and you're only thinking about God all the time, as a poor example, but, you know, at the risk of oversimplifying this, then you're a perfect tzaddik. And if all you ever think about is when I'm going to get lunch next, probably not that high level of a tzaddik, right?
Right.
Okay. Is the point drilled in good enough yet?
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So where was I? I was somewhere.
For they are antithetical to one another.
For they are antithetical to one to the other. Thus it is written, I hate them with the utmost hatred. With hatred I regard them as my own enemies. Search me, Lord, and know my heart.
And that's from Psalm 139.
Right. Hence, according to the abundance of the love toward God, so is the extent of the hatred toward the Sitra Achra, and the utter contempt of evil. For contempt is as much the opposite of real love as is hatred.
Right. I heard a beautiful interpretation on this, and this might be a little bit saucy, but bear with me. Please don't throw any stones at me until I die. The concept of the BDS movements and terrorism and things like this. So we have people out there who say, oh, you know, the terrorists, they have their reasons, right? They're an oppressed people. We should feel sorry for them. And you know what the fact is? We should all be humanitarian. That's absolutely true. But if you give somebody a check, and he uses that check to go and fund his organization who's buying bombs to hurt other people, your kindness is ultimately hurting somebody. And this is the Talmudic statement. If you are kind to the cruel, you will ultimately every time be cruel to the kind. Right? It's just the way it works. This is the chart, right? So if you're 100% God, you're 0 evil. If you're 100% evil, you're 0 God. And if you're somewhere in between, there's your chart. Okay? So this is something important for us to remember. Because there's so many people out there who just love everything, love everybody, and you know, they have their own ways, and that's okay, and that's not godly. That's not God. God says, Yaakov I loved, Esau I hated, right? God hates certain things. God wants us to hate certain things. God wants us to be repulsed by certain things, right? Negativity should be repulsive to us. Someone blowing themselves up so that they can go and get 72 versions should repulse us, should make us very uncomfortable, right? We should be anti that, right? Anti-cruelty. Just as an aside.
The incompletely righteous is he who does not hate the Sitra Achra with an absolute hatred. Therefore, he does not absolutely abhor evil.
So we're talking about somebody who, again on our little chart here, is not this level tzaddik. He's not 100% tzaddik. He's somewhere up and down here, right? He's a partial tzaddik. He's incomplete tzaddik. He's a tzaddik viralo. He's a tzaddik and there's a little evil in him, right? He's got a little love for evil in him somewhere. So that makes him, by necessity, just go ahead and repeat what you just said.
Does not hate the Sitra Achra with an absolute hatred, therefore he does not absolutely abhor evil.
Right, a little ham sandwich, that could be fun, right? Maybe he thinks about it sometimes. Again, this is a tzaddik, he doesn't do it, but he might think about it. If he's an incomplete tzaddik.
And as long as the hatred and scorn of evil are not absolute, there must remain some vestige of love and pleasure in it, and the fouled garments have not entirely and absolutely been shed. Therefore the evil has not actually been converted to goodness, since it still has some hold in the filthy garments, except that it is nullified because of its minute quantity, and is accounted as nothing.
So this is kind of reminding me of when Yeshua was speaking, Mashiach was speaking to Nicodemus, right? Nakdimon. And afterwards he says, you know, those who love God, those who love light, all their actions are in the light. Those who love evil, right, they do things in the dark. This is kind of, I feel, a little bit of what the Alter Rebbe is saying here. The concept that there are certain things like, okay, I actually like that evil a little bit. And let me tell you, it's not a sin to like evil things, right? What's it a sin to do?
Do them.
To do evil things, to speak evil things, to think evil things, right? If you have a thought that comes into your head and it's appealing to you, and you push that thought out of your head, a negative thought, right? You have a wild, crazy thought that comes in, oh, I want a ham sandwich, right? And it's somewhere in your head, you go, oh, that would be nice. And then somewhere else in your head you say, don't think about that. That's not a sin. That's not a sin. God designed us to like evil in this world. That's the purpose of the animal soul. And again, we discussed last week in chapter 9, this is for our good,
That's
right?
the purpose of evil in the world.
There's a purpose for it. Would it ruin some vast eternal plan? Yes, it would. Yes, it would ruin some vast eternal plan.
That was in one of those footnotes.
Yep.
That it's and there was a real fine distinction. It's not in any way part of God, but it is not aligned with God's purpose and plan. It is opposed to it.
Right.
But God allows it to exist for the purpose of man having
free choice and reward and punishment.
Free
Absolutely.
will.
Absolutely.
To choose.
Because God wants us to have more than just the bread of shame, right? God doesn't want us to just receive and receive and receive. He understands if we work for something, we treasure it more, right? And He wants us to treasure the world to come, not just receive it.
That was a really good entry in the glossary there.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So,
Therefore,
just this last part here before you go
It
on.
also mentioned Edom and Esau too.
Just saying. So, we say that it still has some hold in the filthy garments, this love of evil, except that it's nullified. Again, we're talking about a tzaddik in this chapter. It's nullified because of its minute quantity, and it's counted as nothing. So, and the Alter Rebbe is going to continue, excuse me, along that line, giving us some examples. But the idea here is that the good, godly soul is so overwhelming of the negative, you don't see the negative, you just see a tzaddik, right? You see a righteous person. There was a line over here that I think we missed. So with respect we didn't miss it, but we didn't discuss it like we probably should have. Originally, when it talked about these filthy garments, first thing that needs to happen is...
Are we back a page?
Yeah, we're just back one page real quick, and it says the idea of divesting yourself of filthy garments of evil. Right? So, let's say you want to become a tzaddik. Baruch Hashem, this is a very good goal, right? How do you begin to become a tzaddik? You want to get pure, and you're holding a dead rodent, and you immerse in the mikveh with the dead rodent in your hand. You become pure?
Mm-mm.
No, what do you have to do first?
Well, you do, but
drop the rodent,
become
right?
defiled again. Actually, technically speaking.
They say it's a teaching in the Talmud that if you don't become pure...
Oh, you don't become pure. Okay.
If you're in the mikveh, right. With the source of impurity in your hand.
Ah, gotcha.
So the example Rabbi Gordon gave is a baby going to I think we said this last week maybe. A baby's going to a wedding.
Diaper.
Right. The baby's been playing in the dirt and it's covered in mud and the baby's got a full diaper. And you got this
That's
beautiful,
the worst of it.
beautiful, handsome suit for this baby. Do you just put the suit over the muddy baby with the full diaper? No. You first remove the filthy garments and then you put the sweet baby powder and the oils and lotions and everything else. And then you put the garments, the beautiful garments on. Mm-hmm. This is the process. If you want to become a tzaddik, you need to first shed yourself of the evil in your lives, and then acquire good, right? We're going to talk a lot more about that later. But the concept is it's going to be very difficult for you to become pure if you're holding your source of impurity wherever you go, right?
Oh.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's almost like that. Remember that track I mentioned to you, the light? You know,
Oh, yeah. No, I'm good over here.
There's another one about 8 guys hanging onto a branch on the edge of a cliff.
Fireman thing?
And the guy says, oh, we can help you. Just let go of the branch. There's a net down below. Mm-hmm. He says, he says, you just got to let go. It takes a little bit of faith.
Right.
And so you got to let go of the bad.
If you're ever going to get to the good.
To the evil. Or
fall into the good.
Yeah, right. Fall into the good.
Very true. Very important. And there are so many people, and this is practical. I mean, you see people who love...
won't let go of their sin.
Who won't let go of their sin, right? And they want to do a good religious life. They want to be spiritual. They want to be godly. They want to do mitzvahs. They want to study the Bible. And you look in, and they are not progressing. And they are, God forbid, and it's not good to talk about people, but we're being nameless here. And you see them and they're struggling and they're not progressing and it's still chaos for them. And you wonder, why is that happening? First answer is we have no idea. Mm-hmm. God does what God does. We have to give that person every benefit of the doubt.
Got a rat in their pocket.
Certain times in certain places, people
like, take those pockets out right now. Let's see what you got.
People hold on to negativity, and this is the concept of what Mashiach said in regards to Nicodemus there, right? Well, they love the dark, and they're going to hold on to that, and that's going to prevent them from being 100% light. Again, love of evil versus level of righteousness.
So discouraging.
May God empower us.
Therefore, such a person is called a righteous man, in whom the evil is subjugated and surrendered to him. Accordingly, his love of God is also not perfect, with the result that he is called incompletely righteous. Now this grade is subdivided into myriads of degrees in respect of the quality of the minute evil remaining in him from any of the four evil elements. What are the evil elements?
Pleasure-seeking, arrogance, flightiness, depression / stubbornness.
Flightiness?
Earth, air, fire, water. Solid stubbornness, liquid stubbornness, gaseous stubbornness, and high-energy fire
each
stubbornness.
Each of the elements is related to
a negative trait. They can be used for positive too. But remember, the animal soul is made up of klipat noga, which is the stuff of this world. The world's made up of four elements: solid, liquid, gas, and energy. Right. So,
earth, air,
water, air, fire.
Solid, the
liquid,
energy
gas,
is fire.
Energy,
Okay.
right? Yeah.
Okay.
As well,
plasma, they say, and like in the sun.
Okay.
As well as in relation to its proportionate abnegation by reason of its minuteness, such as, by the way of example, 1 in 60, or in 1,000, or in 10,000, and the like.
So this is the kosher rules that the Alter Rebbe is bringing in here to help give us an idea. Well, what level of tzaddik are you talking about? They say if you have a big pot of chicken soup and you're sipping your coffee because you're sipping your coffee and a drop of cream, a drop of milk from the coffee falls into the soup. The question is that drop less than 1/60th of the total? If it is, you don't have to throw the pot of soup away, right? So maybe this tzaddik is majority chicken, but he's got 1 out of 60 drops of milk in him, right? He's got a little bit, or 1 in, what does it say? 100, 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000. So on and so forth. So again, the Alter Rebbe is using words to describe this.
Okay. 1 in 60, 1 in 1,000. Okay.
Right.
So the 60 is not even an arbitrary number.
No.
That is in fact a halakha.
Nothing here is arbitrary. Nothing in Torah is arbitrary.
Such is the gradations of the numerous righteous men who are to be found in every generation, as mentioned in the Gemara
in the Talmud.
18,000 righteous men stand before the Holy One, blessed be He.
So
blessed is He.
So there's a statement in the Talmud that there are 18,000 tzaddikim. 18,000 is a lot of righteous men, right?
This is for the whole history of the world.
Okay, let's say it is.
Is this what it is implying?
Fine, let's go with that. So if that's the case, how many generations do we have so far since Abraham?
Generations?
Generations. We did the math before.
We did?
Somewhere between 125 and 140 generations, we think. From us to Abraham, right?
So when God's... So divide that in there.
So divide
that
in.
150 on the outside at most, right?
Right.
Okay.
Okay, sure. Let's say 150. So when God says, my kindness extends to you for thousands of generations, well, we haven't even hit 1,000 yet, right?
Dude, seriously, how long is
So Baruch Hashem, God's kindness is awesome.
Amen.
That said, okay, let's say there's 150 generations. We have 18,000 tzaddikim total. Then do the math, right? That chops up into however many tzaddiks are present in every generation. But this is talking about all the tzaddikim, right? Even the guys who might be down in the low percentage tzaddikim rate, right? This is not talking about the tzaddik gomer, the perfect tzaddik up here, right? For them, God says, I saw that they were very few, so I spread them out over the generations, right?
Thank you.
What's an example of a perfect tzaddik, as long as we're on the topic?
Someone who has mastered his evil inclination, and
Right.
it doesn't exist anymore.
Okay. Someone who's a total and complete perfect chariot to God.
Right. So he doesn't even go, oh, I wish I had a
There's
ham
not a
sandwich.
selfish.
Oh,
There's
I'm
not a
even
selfish
thinking.
thought at all, right? It's only about how can I serve God right now,
Right.
right?
Right.
Who are examples of this throughout history?
This is a rough working of the... And I changed the 150, 180 to make it easy.
Sure.
100 to 1.
Okay, so
In each
maybe
generation, right?
maybe a little less than 100 in every generation. Okay, let's say there's
There's 100 tzaddikim in this?
seven.
Wow.
It's probably less than that, so probably like 75, let's say, whatever.
So the point is
Of varying levels. You know, they could be very complete tzaddikim, 99%
that's
tzaddiks.
not very much. That's just
not a
totally
lot at all.
sad.
It's not a lot at all. That's
That
why
is
God spread them out.
That's more than just one, though.
Ever the chesed, I love you.
What does it say? That it's something like 30 righteous men in every generation that make sure that the world that God
No, I think
sustains the
it's
world.
5 or 8. There has to be
I've
that
heard
are
a couple different
foundations.
Oh,
Foundations of the world tzaddikim.
Right.
And
So
you could
that's-
have it
where
That's a
do you
few.
remember where you drew?
Oh, I've
drew
been hearing that
from?
for 30 years.
a couple different places.
Right. But I think it even talks about it in Tanya, doesn't it?
And there's some tzaddikim that are so perfect tzaddikim, righteous ones, that the entire world is sustained just on their merit.
Right, and that's what. But there's a few of those. There's like 5 or 8. It's a
Can
low.
we think of any examples of some of these different types of people throughout the Bible?
Throughout the Bible?
Throughout the Bible. Give me an example of a perfect tzaddik who, as they say, the rainbow never shined for in their lifetime because God never had to think about the flood again. Because
Joseph?
this person, Yosef. Yosef HaTzadik. Joseph, the righteous one. Joseph the saint. The son of Jacob, right?
God
this
didn't
guy,
have to remind himself, oh, wait,
Joseph
don't do that.
was
there was
called
not,
the tzaddik?
I believe they said that there was no rainbow in his generation because Joseph was so righteous, God
That's
never
like
had to think
10,
about the
12
Mabul,
points.
think about the flood.
And then there
Right.
was at least another...
A couple more, right? They say in the author of the Zohar, the guy who penned the Zohar, the Rabbi Shimon Bar
Yochai.
Yochai, thank you, the Rashbi, the rainbow never shone in his generation either.
Wow.
Right? So these are like super tzaddikim, right? 100% tzaddiks. What about people who were maybe not so 100% tzaddikim? We think of like righteous guys who weren't completely perfect righteous. It's a tough
David.
one. David, great
David.
example.
Hezekiah.
David has this whole Baal Tshuva thing. Chizkiyahu, okay. He's a little bit of a more complex issue.
Mhm.
What about all the Shvatim? What about all the 12 sons?
Yeah.
You know, they said
And
that they were
Abraham
all
and Moshe
righteous.
and
Because Abraham had a Yishmael, and Abraham had Ishmael. Isaac had Esau. Yaakov had 12 perfect sons, 12 tzaddikim, 12 righteous sons, right? But they weren't righteous like Yosef was righteous, right? Yosef was like Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, David. Perfect tzaddikim, right? Like the Rashbi.
Well,
So kind of think about that as we're moving through this material.
was Samuel
Shmuel HaNavi, it would stand to reason, right?
and Joe. Was Joe
Eov?
righteous yet?
Eov was a very righteous guy. I don't think anyone will argue that. Well, exactly what level where he is on this chart, I'm not sure we have that kind of information. But at the same
Though,
point, he was probably high up.
before the end, he was kind of... just a little bit of self-righteousness there that God even corrected him on.
Right. And I mean, it is certainly not our place to pick apart Eov or Job.
Oh, no. But then, I mean, the whole turnaround in the book, the last chapter, is that God turned around everything for Job.
Absolutely true. Absolutely
when
true.
he prayed for his friends,
Yeah.
who were way off.
Right. Not even tzaddikim, right?
Right.
So we hear the story, again, it's not our place to pick apart Eov, but it's maybe an okay example. They say that Pharaoh had 3 advisors, right? It was Jethro, Job, and
And
Bilam.
Job was one of his advisors.
I
right?
read that part in the Legends.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
In the Agadot.
Mhm.
So we know that Bilam said enslave the Jews, right? And it happened. And Jethro said, no, you can't
I'm
touch
outta
the
here.
Jews.
He said, I'm out of
No,
here.
Jethro
Right?
said, don't touch the Jews, and he was exiled, right?
Oh, okay.
Job said, I'm out of here, right? Job
okay.
didn't put up a fight at that time. There are people who say that this could be the whole reason the whole Job story happened in the book of the Bible, because this was his thing, and this is what he was saying to his friends. It doesn't matter my sins that I've done; it doesn't justify this punishment, right? And that's kind of the point. We could study for weeks about Job, but at the same point, if he didn't completely abhor evil to the point where he needed to stand up about it, right? Then he couldn't have been.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying?
Got ya.
At the same point, this is speculation from my point of view. I haven't been. I don't know.
Got ya.
At the same point, this is the kind of functionality we can start to think of in light of this chapter, right?
Okay, where did I leave off? Now, the grade is subdivided? No.
No,
However, it is with regard to the superior quality of the completely righteous that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai
the Rashbi, author of the
said,
Zohar.
I have seen superior men, B'nai Aliyah, and their numbers are few.
What are
They're-
B'nai Aliyah?
What was my question to you? Don't
Well,
ask me.
B'nai is sons,
B'nai, sons of.
and Aliyah means go up to the house of the Lord.
Sons of height. Sons of great heights. Absolutely. Torah point for you.
Very good.
I mean,
Very
I'm
good.
rolling, just want to say.
By the way, you each got Torah points earlier for your help in the introduction. Thank you.
And their numbers are few. The reason for their title of superior men is that
Men
they
of heights.
convert evil and make it ascend to holiness.
They actually take that negativity that's in their heart, and they transform it to godliness. This is not the service of some other people who bury their evil and just do good. That's a really holy thing. May there be more people like that. These tzaddikim, these men of heights, they actually take the negativity within them
How do you do
and
that?
turn it into godliness
How do you do that?
with God's help.
As it is written in the Zohar in the introduction, that when Rabbi Chaya
Chia.
is wished to ascend to the Hikol, heavenly
Heichal.
shrine of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he heard a voice came out and say, "Which of you, before coming here, has converted darkness into light?" Wait a minute, let me ask about this.
Yep, we're
There
gonna
was a
discuss it.
heavenly okay.
And
bitter taste into sweetness. Otherwise, do not approach here, and so forth.
so Rabbi Chia,
What is he speaking about? This
Yeah,
heavenly
exactly.
shrine.
That's my question.
I don't really prefer the English translation here. Heichal means a chamber. Heichal means a room. Like my father's
So-
house has many rooms.
Rabbi Shimon Bar, so he had a room.
He
And
has a
it-
place in the world to come.
Oh, so they're talking about that place.
So he was.
How
So
was he
Rabbi-
trying to
Wish to
come up
ascend,
there to
he's-
ascend that?
Great question. Let's move on.
Oh.
So Rabbi Chia, he says, he wishes to go to the Heichal, to the chamber, to the place, to the house, to the room of Rashbi.
in
And
some
there's-
way connect with the soul of this Zadok.
This is where he'd like
Right.
to be. And people talk, and yes, connect to the soul of this tzaddik. And people talk about the world to come. Again, my father's house has many rooms. And what does this mean? What's the point of doing mitzvahs if we're all going to be doing mitzvahs and we're all going to, and then there's going to be delicacies that are going to be as abundant as dust? Well, who cares if I have more or less, if everyone's going to be equal in the world to come? Not so, right? Even Jeremiah 31, it says, they shall all know me in the new covenant, from the least to the greatest. Even in that very prophecy, it defines that there's going to be people who are small and
Different
people who are
levels.
great.
Mm-hmm.
So Rabbi Chia, presumably a good meaning yid, right? He wants to go into the Heichal. We know what this means: chamber, room, house of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai on high in Gan Eden, in the Garden of Eden, in the world to come. Okay. He wants to get in, and this heavenly voice booms out. What does the heavenly voice say? It
Who do you
says,
think you are, really?
"Which
Well,
of you?"
again, I mean, you're describing it in physical terms. Get into this heavenly chamber.
Right.
He's trying to connect with the soul of the Zadok.
Absolutely, and his place, right? Not just his
He
person.
wants his level, his height, his.
Room.
Oh, I might be here, but I want to get up there.
I'd like to be here, right? I would like to be in this holy room where
Couple
Moses
rungs
is,
higher.
or right, you know.
And
the
how many
idea.
people take this out of the heavenly realms and take it into the real realms? How many people in life do this exact thing?
Right.
Oh, well, I'm not there, but that person is there, and I want to be where they are. And then what happens? They get ugly about it.
Right. Rabbi Yechezkel up in Toronto, he talks about leapfrogging. I just saw a thing the other day.
Leapfrogging?
People who were like, "Oh, I want the super level of holiness. You know, I want to speak in tongues and I want to teleport and stuff." And it's like, okay, let's start.
Put the ham sandwich down.
Let's start by putting the hand sandwich down. Right? Let go of the rodent before you get in the mikvah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, what happens when there's these people who want to ascend to these great heights? What did they say to Rabbi Chia? He said, "Which of you, before coming..."
Wow.
He goes up to the Heichel, goes to the chamber, goes to the gate, wherever this holy person is. There's a Moses in there. There's an Aaron in there. Okay, whatever. And there's a heavenly voice that booms out, and it says, "Which of you, before coming here, has converted darkness to light and bitter taste into sweetness? Otherwise, don't approach here. Don't come near here. You're not invited here. You can't come in. The door is shut." Right?
Mm-hmm.
How practical is this for everyday life? So we have aspirations. We want to be these great, holy, fantastic people. And the fact of the matter is, tzaddikim are on a different level. What is the definition of a tzaddik? Not one who buries his evil inclination. One who transforms it, sublimates it, and elevates it to another godly soul. And now he's doing godly stuff with horsepower.
that was the footnote. It said it has subjugated it to the point of not true nullification, but
using
transformation.
it for transformation, right? I'm not repressing it. I'm not caging the inner beast. I'm putting a yoke on it, and it's now driving my car for me, or whatever. You know what I mean? It's pulling my wagon.
I'm mastering it, not it me.
Exactly. And you're not, again, keeping it in a cage where it can't do anything. You're using it. You're using it. That's a tzaddik thing. That's a converting darkness to light thing. That's a bitter taste and sweetness thing.
Great teaching of the Baal Shem.
That
even in the normal things of life, we can serve God.
Absolutely.
L'chaim.
In the Tanakh itself, it says, in all your ways you should know God, right? In everything that you do, right? They talk about the concept of food we mentioned earlier tonight. Okay. The concept of food, you can't be an ascetic, you can't live without food or water, right? They tell a story about a gentleman, a nice chassid, I believe, and he would never, I probably told this story before, but he never wanted to lower himself to his food, right? He always kept his face up when he was eating, right? He had a long beer with soup in it, because he always brought his food up here. He didn't want to lower himself to the food.
You should have seen the front of his shirt.
He probably made a mess. But that's the imagery we need to go into. Am I eating this burger whenever we get done and we make tacos or whatever we're going to do? Am I eating this taco because I'm hungry and it tastes delicious and it's so good? Because any one of those is sin. I mean, it's not sin, but it's not holiness, right? It's certainly not holiness.
Normally your taco has meat and cheese on it, so I would say...
Our tacos do not have meat.
Our
tacos have meat and vegan cheese on it.
And vegan cheese on it. That's
Actually, I was in the, what do they call it? The natural section of Wegmans, and found meatless meatballs.
Hey, there we go.
They're completely.
They have all kinds of vegetarian crumbles.
There
are ways to get around
vegetarian in the universe.
They're certified kosher.
Yep.
And they taste great.
Yeah.
They really.
Really? Did you
There's
take a
a way
picture
to
or
get
tell
around.
me what the name of it is?
Better times for this discussion.
Sorry.
I will. Well, but this is a great example.
So Baruch Hashem, the idea is we're not eating because it's delicious. We're eating because we require the energy to serve God. Right? That's the point.
Right.
That's
and
there is some pleasure in the deliciousness.
And that's why it's so dangerous to eat or anything pleasurable, right?
And which is the great struggle, and this is why we talk about this, because Italian foods can be so good, but how do you eat Italian and do it kosher?
Right, it's very
it's difficult.
So first step, eat kosher, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Second step, eat godly, right? When you're eating, know that you're not eating because it tastes good or it looks good or because I want it. That's selfish, that's animal soul stuff. Eat because if I don't, I won't be able to serve God. I won't be able to stay awake for the Tanya class. I won't be able to go to work and make a living. I won't be able to fill in the blank, right? We eat to serve God, not to serve us.
And this is also the purpose of the blessing.
And that's the purpose of making a bracha before you eat. Absolutely.
Because we
invite God into the
thank God
ordeal.
For, we bless Him for all.
Right. What does bless mean? That we should draw Him into our experience with us.
And then we do it after we eat and are satisfied.
Absolutely. So we remember where it came from. Very good. Very good.
A further explanation of the title, Superior Men, is that their service in the category of do good in the fulfillment of the Torah and its commandments is for the sake of the above, the ultimate of the highest degrees, and not merely in order to attach themselves to God, so as to quench the thirst of their own soul, which thirsts for God, as it is written, Ho, all who thirst, go to water, as is explained elsewhere.
So what does this mean?
That was a little confusing.
Right. There's a verse. Where does it come from? 11. Isaiah 55. You who are thirsty, you should go and drink, right? There's a man, he's standing in the middle of a river, he's crying for water. Or the guy in the cereal aisle. Obviously, it's talking about Torah here, right? If you're hungry for Torah, go and drink. There ain't mayim el Torah. There's no water other than Torah. So there's a concept of, okay, godliness feels good, right? We talk about the lower level of fear, the lower level of love, the higher level of love, and the higher level of fear of God. The lower level of love is, I'm a smart guy. I like good things to happen for me. I know that all good things come from God. I'm going to get on God's good side so that He should do good things for me, yeah? this is...
I'm going to get on board this Torah thing.
I'm going to get on board this Torah thing, right? Okay, fine. I'll do that because I want good for me, right? That's okay. May more people be like that, right?
Yeah.
At the same point, there's a higher level of love where I love God not because He's going to be good for me, but I love Him because of who He is. And I'm not a factor in the equation. So Isaiah 55 here is saying, you're thirsty for water, go engage in Torah, right? What these perfectly superior men, these righteous guys are, the tzaddikim, tzaddik gomer, it's not about them at all. Even a lower level tzaddik, it's not about them at all. It's not because I want good things to happen to me, so therefore I'm going to serve God with every aspect of my being. The me factor doesn't even come into their equation, right? It's only ever about God.
Is this footnote 15?
The absolute altruistic worshiper is not
motivated.
It's 11.
It's 11.
Oh, that's the Isaiah quote, yeah.
Yeah, always based on the play on the words.
Okay, 14 comes a little bit later. Yeah, go ahead and read on. We're on the same topic.
Rather, their service is, as explained in the Tikkunei Zohar, what is kind? He who conducts himself with benevolence toward his Creator, towards his nest, uniting the Holy One, blessed is He, and his Shekinah, within those who dwell in the nethermost worlds.
Right, remember, I'm not sure, actually I think it was before we started filming, and we were just kind of talking before we started.
Just talking about nethermost our world.
Right, the Shekinah is with us. Where's Where's God's divine presence? It's in His people, right? It's in the olive tree. The olive tree is in exile, God forbid, unfortunately, right? So the Shekinah is in exile. It comes with us. It says God went with us to Babylon. It's our job to raise Him up out of the king. The king should not have his head in a toilet. We should be raising God out of this place. And every time we sin, as it says in Book 3 of Tanya, we're dragging God down with us. Chas v'sholem, God forbid.
As also explained in the Raya
Mehemna, the faithful shepherd. That's the part of the Zohar that was authored by Moshe Rabbeinu.
These things just roll off his tongue.
We should be engaged in this every day. We should roll off everyone's tongues.
Yes.
On Parashat Tzitzi?
Tzetze.
In the manner of a son who integrates himself with his father and mother.
Ingratiates.
Ingratiates.
I don't know, I'm not real familiar with what
ingratiate means I'm
from the root gratuitous, yeah?
Yeah, he ingratiates himself.
Go ahead and read the parable and we'll discuss it.
Okay. Himself with his father and mother whom he loves more than his own body and soul, and is prepared to sacrifice his own life for them to redeem them, and is explained elsewhere.
So the concept here, and this is again in the Raya Mehemna, in the portion of the Zohar that's authored by Moshe Rabbeinu, that there is this parable, and we talk about this later in our blue section up here, in the 40s of Tanya, about love and fear of God, this level of love of God, this higher level that we talked about, not love of self. I want God to do good for me, so therefore I'm going to go do for Him. But this is a level of a son, says Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses our teacher, that the father or the mother was captured, God forbid, kidnapped, right? And the son's ready to go in there like a Rambo, and he's ready to sacrifice his own life to get his parents out. Now, if he's sacrificing his own life to get his parents out, then exactly what is he going to get from the situation, right? It's not about him at all. It's about his love for his father, right? That's the idea.
This is now we're on
15?
15.
Please.
The absolute altruistic worshiper is not motivated by a desire to save his soul or to gratify its longing for unity with the deity, but by pure love and a desire to please God and make His presence felt everywhere.
So we've talked about this before in Tanya, elsewhere, the concept of the difference between Judaism and other religions, right? May God protect us. How is Judaism different from Christianity or Islam? Christianity and Islam, and again, I study Torah. I don't study those.
Well,
at the same point,
they are Christianity and Islam are more focused on the rewards in the afterlife.
The idea is to go to heaven, to get saved.
Go up and to get out of here, where Judaism is to bring it down here.
What's Judaism's goal? We make a bracha before everything. That we understand that we're not going anywhere else, right? This is the lowest world. It doesn't get any lower from here, and we're not leaving it, right? What's going to happen? Mashiach's going to return, and He's going to establish His kingdom here, His New Jerusalem, right? And He's going to dwell within us here on this world. So what is our job as Jews? We're trying to escape this world? No. This is our eternal living home.
Prepare
This is our eternal bedroom with
world
God.
a fit place.
So we should make
for
it a
dwelling
comfortable
for
bedroom
God.
for God, right? So that He should live with us and be comfortable with us here.
Amen.
That's what Judaism focuses on the earth, and every other religion, or all these other major religions, they focus on getting out, right? God isn't, the perfect believer is not someone who's trying to save his own soul, but someone who cares about God so much that he wants God's will over his own. What's God's will? That God should be revealed here through his children. That's the point.
Tell them to make a tabernacle that I may dwell.
Exodus 25:8, the purpose of creation. Have them make me a mishkan, and I will dwell within them. B'tocham. Very good.
And both interpretations are complementary, for through acts of refinement of the good out of the noga, one elevates the feminine waters, causing supernal unions to bring down the masculine waters, which are the flow of divine kindness contained in each of the 248 positive precepts, all of which are in the nature of kindness, and masculine waters, so that is to say, the flow of holiness of his godliness, blessed be he, from the downward to be clothed in those who live in the lower worlds, as is explained elsewhere.
Clear as a bell, right?
Yeah, I was clear.
Okay.
Well, it was getting a little mucky.
A little much? All right. Let's,
but it's pretty much straightforward.
let's demystify here. And this whole end part here is all parentheses, original parentheses by the author, I believe. So, both interpretations, coming out of Klipat Noga, we have this concept of feminine waters and masculine waters. Reb Bitzalel, you're on stage.
Oh.
What is the difference and similarity between masculine and feminine waters?
It's a analogy of waters flowing.
Right. Water represents desire, pleasure.
Right. And also represents Torah.
And water represents Torah. Ein mayim ela Torah.
Right. Now, in fact, the Torah came down to us from God.
Like water trickles from a high place to a low.
This is an example of the masculine waters.
Right. God gives. That's the masculine. The masculine energy is, and I mean, think about the concept of intimacy, right? How do you make a baby? The masculine component gives seed. The feminine component receives seed, and then they make a baby. Baruch Hashem. So
now, out of the Torah, when we engage ourselves in mitzvot,
right,
to obey God and to connect with Him,
and to acknowledge Him and send a message that we are a receptive vessel for His kindness, for His masculine waters, then what does He do?
And it even goes deeper, because in those mitzvah we take the normal everyday things, the klipa noga,
right, the regular stuff,
and raise them up,
right,
to God, to return the sparks to the source, right?
Just like a fruit has a shell of peel, so also holy things have a shell of mundane things, everyday things.
So then this is what is referred to by the feminine waters.
Right. So
lift the normal things up to God.
We were speaking again, I think, earlier tonight. The Talmud says, what's it? Should the man pay for the date, or should the woman? Right? Should the man call after the date? This is very important stuff, right? And the Talmud says it's the nature of man to pursue woman, right? In the relationship with God and His Jewish people, His nation of Israel, His olive tree, who's the man and who's the woman?
God's the man.
God be the man.
The woman.
We be the woman, right? So it's the nature of God to pursue us, and this is why you see that God made creation without us having to do anything. Then what happened?
Well, kind of blew it a little bit. But
then what happened? God gave us mitzvot, right?
Gave Adam one command.
He gave us commandments.
Well, maybe a couple. It was.
Let's just go plain for right now.
Yeah, but the basic one.
God made a world. He put mankind on it. He gave mankind mitzvahs.
Right. Said, eat everything, but don't touch that tree.
And then we do them to show Him that we are receptive, that we're open.
What happens when we do one of God's mitzvahs? We connect with His will, right? That's the woman sending a message to the man. I'm available. Pursue me, right? And then what does God do? Read Malachi chapter 3, right? Malachi.
Open the windows of heaven.
See if God will not over encumber you with blessings, right? He is going to, you are not going to be able to run from these blessings. God is going to pursue you so much, right? We want that kind of relationship with God, that he should be pursuing after us like a husband attracted to his wife, right? This is a very beautiful thing.
The blessings will run you down.
The blessings will run you down, right? This is what we would like this, right? How do we acquire this? We need to engage, we need to display these feminine waters. What does that mean? We do mitzvahs. We do mitzvahs. We study a little Torah. We give a little charity. We pray. You know, we eat kosher. The sages say that one who sits on his hands and keeps himself from doing a sin, it's counted to him as if he did a positive mitzvah, right? We're still sending that feminine water message. So don't, keep kosher. Do tzedakah, do tefillin, these different things that you can do. And this is going to send a message to God saying, hey, pursue me. And then he's going to chase you down with blessings, right?
Very good.
Okay, so that was chapter 10.
Yeah, I guess that's the end of chapter 10.
Chapter 10. Yeah.
Thoughts, questions, comments, concerns?
That was good.
That was good.
What did we learn in chapter 10?
Well, we're not exotic.
Yeah.
Just wait till you hit chapter 11.
This is one thing.
Yes.
Of either level.
Of either level. That's what I wanted to hear. What do you mean levels?
The perfect tzaddik, or the righteous man who prospers, the one who's had totally subjugated his animal soul and
As opposed to the...
and his evil inclination.
He's just perfected it. He's
so
gotten it.
he's got, there's an Abraham out there,
Subjugated.
right?
Yeah.
There's a Moses, right? There's a... Pick your tzaddik, right? There's a Rashbi.
Pick your tzaddik.
There's a Alter Rebbe out there, right? There's someone who's a total perfect tzaddik, and he has absolutely no desire for evil whatsoever. On the contrary, he despises evil. He's repulsed by evil. He has this urge. He gets angry with evil. He wants to fight evil, right? And selfishness. How does he differ from another level of tzaddik?
The incomplete tzaddik.
Because he doesn't love evil at all.
Right? Go ahead and point to that.
He doesn't love evil at all.
The
It's
perfect
0%.
tzaddik.
Oh no. Well,
100%.
there's still a little piece.
With an
What did you
incomplete.
say?
Well, yeah. The original was the perfect
So
tzaddik.
we're on to something else.
Zero love of evil, zero selfishness. What if there's 1% selfishness, 1% love of evil? He cannot be 100% tzaddik, right?
Right.
He's a tzaddik she'eno gomer.
Or a righteous
Not a
man
perfect.
who suffers.
Or a white man who suffers, or a tzaddik varalo, a tzaddik with a little evil in him, right? Again, not practically. A person who sins one time is a rasha until he repents.
Not practically in that he carries it through.
Right? He doesn't sin. And not in his thoughts, not in his speech, not in his actions. At the same point, you could have another tzaddik who also is not sinning in his thought, his speech, and his deeds, but there's a little desire maybe somewhere there for something, right? So he's going to come down this line a little bit and over in here a little bit. How many levels of tzaddikim are there?
100.
Well, I guess
100?
there
No,
can
you said there's 100%, so I'm assuming.
Could you have a 99.5% tzaddik?
No.
No? What about a
Well,
99.999%
yeah.
tzaddik?
You can. You can have a lot of levels.
Yeah.
What about a 0.00001% tzaddik?
I think
He's a regular Beinoni, but this one area, he really doesn't desire evil there at all.
so. It would be infinite number.
An infinite number. That's what I was thinking. As many different people as there are, as many different tzaddikim as there are, that's how many levels there are.
Oh, I see.
They're all different.
Gotcha.
The same point, once you get to that 100% line, it's a pretty good place to be. It's a totally different reality than what we understand. A tzaddik is something of a superhuman, right? Doesn't think about himself at all, like Hillel, who forgot to eat. A tzaddik only ever thinks about God. That's all he ever cares about. And that's why it says the patriarchs are like a chariot for God. Abraham never had a selfish thought. Isaac never had a selfish thought. Jacob never thought, when am I going to get lunch? He only ever thought about, what's the next mitzvah I could do? How can I serve God better? How can I bring God down here better? How can I make this world a more fit dwelling for him now? That's all these people ever thought.
Merkava, chariot.
Merkava.
From Ezekiel 1. The ultimate in submission to God, surrender of the will to the divine will. The patriarchs constituted the chariot. Every act of obedience to divine law makes one a chariot for godliness.
Absolutely true. When you're doing a mitzvah, you are now car and driver. You're the chariot of God. For that moment. If
Yeah.
you're doing a sin,
In
God
other
forbid.
words, You're exotic for a moment.
Enjoy that moment, right? What if, God forbid, the opposite is true? If you're engaged in a sin, chas v'shalom, God forbid. For that moment, you're a vehicle to the forces of impurity. You're a car for demons.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fun, right? Mm-hmm. So, that's kind of what we discussed here in chapter 10. Last thoughts, questions, anything like that?
No, I don't think so. I was actually thinking about something I had read and I was trying to find it because it's sort of... Oh, here's the Orot Vekilim.
Oh, well, in the meantime...
that was a good one. No.
Let's end the video here. Please join us for chapter 11. Baruch Hashem.
Amen.